Welcome to this week's episode of KLPC Presents Study the Greats. This is our Honorable Mentions episode. I'm your host, Kick Nice, and we hope you enjoy.
Brothers and sisters, please quiet down. Thank you. Brothers and sisters, we come here time after time and we talk about the same old. Quiet. We talk about Jesus.
That's right.
Jesus said and Jesus went. Oh, yeah. Jesus heard and Jesus walked over it. Oh, yeah. Jesus. Well, I don't want to talk about Jesus this evening. Because as the big man teaches us, it's two sides to every story. Not one, but two. A story is not one-sided. A story has a duality. There's two sides to every story.
Talk about it now.
Which brings to mind the phrase, necessary evil. Now, I know many of you may hear the phrase necessary evil and you say to yourself, that don't even make no sense to me. Can't be no such thing as necessary. How's evil necessary? That don't match. That's plaids and stripes, evil and necessary. You see, because without bad, there is no good. Without light, there is no dark. You need both these things. You hear what I'm saying? If every day is a sunny day, well, then what's a sunny day?
What is?
Well, the bottom line, brothers and sisters, what I'm trying to tell you tonight is that evil is necessary. Evil is necessary. Thereby, if it's necessary, evil must be good. Evil is good. That's what I think.
It must be.
Evil must be good. Let me hear y'all say it. Evil is good. That's right. Evil is good.
But I don't think that people generally realize what the motion picture industry has done to the American Indian. As a matter of fact, all ethnic groups, all minorities, all non-whites. And people just simply don't realize, they just took it for granted that that's the way people are going to be presented, and these cliches were just going to be perpetuated. And so when someone makes a protest of some kind and says, no, please don't present the Chinese this way, or please, I mean, on this network every night, well, perhaps not every night, but you can see silly renditions of human behavior. The leering Filipino houseboy, the wily Japanese, or the kook or the gook, and the idiot black man, and the stupid Indian, and it just goes on and on and on. And people actually don't realize how deeply these people are injured by seeing themselves represented, not so much the adults because they're already inured to that kind of pain and pressure, but children, Indian children, seeing Indians represented as savage, as ugly, as nasty, vicious, treacherous, drunken. They grow up only with a negative image of themselves, and it lasts a lifetime. Is that an answer to your question?
Yeah. Did you expect the kind of outrage that you got from people? I believe, well, that very night, Raquel Welch made a joke against you, saying that I hope the next person doesn't have a cause. Who's the Indian? Who's the Western star who followed later? Steve McQueen. Clint Eastwood, yes, of course. I very seldom make mistakes. He did his version of a joke, and then John Wayne looked like he was about ready to get a posse together. He looked so sore. Did that surprise you, that they would be angered that you desecrated their cathedral?
I wasn't surprised, no.
You know, let me just say this. The tradition of great performers from, and I really want you to hear what I have to say. the tradition of great performers from Sammy Davis Jr. to James Brown to Jackie Wilson to Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly. The story is usually the same though. You know, these guys work really hard at their craft, but the story ends the same. They usually are broken, torn, and usually just sad. And the story is very sad in the end because the companies take advantage of them. They really do. And Sony being being the artist that I am at Sony, I've generated several $1 billion for Sony, several billion, and they really thought that my mind is always on music and dancing and it usually is, but they never thought that this performer myself would outthink them.
Yeah!
We can't let them get away with what they're trying to do because now I'm a free agent. Yeah. I just owe Sony one more album. It's just a box set, really. It's with 2 new songs which I've written ages ago. Because every album that I record, I write, like, literally, I'm telling you the truth, I write at least 120 songs every album I do. So I can do the box set and just give them any 2 songs. So I'm leaving Sony a free agent. Owning half of Sony. So I own half of Sony's publishing and I'm leaving them, and they're very angry at me because of it, but I just did good business, you know.
Tell him! Say it, Michael! Tell the story!
But, so, the way they get revenge is to try and destroy my album. But I've always said, you know, good art never dies.
Masonry is not the Illuminati. Freemasonry is, or was, it originally started off as what science would be called today. Back in the days, there were several sects that knew the truth, and they would put that truth into whatever craft they were practicing at the time. So first you have men and women that make boats, and they make these boats to sail. So they create what is called maritime law, the law of the sea. And there's a gentleman named Jason Whitley, as well as Jordan Maxwell, that speaks, actually Jordan Maxwell speaks extensively on this, that in an ancient sense, those who made ships would put spiritual knowledge into the concept of shipbuilding. So you would get God as a ship. God's inner would be the hull, the mind is the sails, and we are on the stage of life sailing, sort of like an old Freemason or Masonic poem is row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. That's the secret if you can comprehend what I just said. But the point is that secrets are put into the craft of the teacher. The teacher does not blatantly tell you, this is the truth. You won't even understand it. What the teacher does is put the truth in the craft that the teacher is practicing. So you have shipbuilding, and you get this whole philosophy, which is really all of Egyptian mythology based on ships, water, because that was their craft, that was what that was. Then you go a little further down, and you get, actually, right here in California, on Wilshire Boulevard, there's a major Masonic temple there, and on the outside of the temple, they show you the pharaoh Akhenaten handing over to a Greek philosopher the truth. And that Greek philosopher handing it off to someone else, and that's right there on Wilshire Boulevard. You should go look at it.
Word.
This is where Freemasons get their knowledge handed to them from the pharaoh of Egypt, Akhenaten, who was one of the special pharaohs, because Akhenaten is the one that didn't believe in the old Egyptian ways. He said there is a new way to approach God, and told everybody that God was the sun. And we're not going to get into Christianity and all of that later, but this was first Akhenaten. Now, I mentioned all of that just to draw a wedge between Freemasonry and Illuminati. The Illuminati is a different group. May have been some of them may have been Freemasons, but Freemasonry is about the building of man as Solomon's temple. As Solomon builds his temple, this is how you should be building yourself. And as one of Solomon's temples, you are also building the world to be a better place. That's Freemasonry. Illuminati is a group of scientists that were against the church, and the church was against them. Some 17th century philosophers called themselves the illuminated ones, the ones who bring light into the world. They were scientists that were saying basically that the Bible is not the whole truth. That like a guy like Sir Francis Bacon, who everybody believes is the true writer for Shakespeare. Francis Bacon, actually there's a movie coming out October 28th called Anonymous.
Shakespeare was a fraud or something.
Shakespeare was a fraud. This is a Masonic lore that's getting ready to be revealed. But this guy Francis Bacon is the one who was believed to be the original writer of Shakespeare. Francis Bacon would be somebody you would say is part of the Illuminati.
Right.
Not a bad group. The Illuminati has nothing to do with evil, nothing to do with all of that. The Illuminati is a group, the first group is a group of philosophers, a group of scholars that are not looking at reality based on the church. They're looking at it based on what we now call science. The other Illuminati is a group of bankers that start with the Rothschilds. And there were one Rothschild, and it was 5 sons. And each Rothschild controlled a part of Europe. One son was England, one son was France, one son was Spain, one son was Germany. And they started a banking system in Europe, the Rothschilds. It was a Jewish family. Started a banking conglomerate throughout Europe, lending money. making money on money. And their banking practice got so big that they began to finance governments. The bank began to finance wars and other things like that. And so this group of bankers got slapped with the term Illuminati. Bilderberg Corporation, which is its own Trilateral Commission. These are all committees and groups of nerds that want you to believe they are someone for you to fear. Those that know the truth know what the Illuminati is. You know what Freemasonry is. In fact, you know that the only reason you can even speak the word Freemasonry and Illuminati is because the true secret society is operating on us right now, and you do not know. Those who are really in control, we don't even know their names.
Right.
We will never know their names. And here's the secret to life right here. The ones that are in control are righteous and good. The world is controlled by righteous people. Those righteous people make you believe that they must be feared so you don't rob them and beat them and run up in the White House and demand justice. These people keep big security all around them. Why? Because they scared.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming to visit us this morning on People Are Talking. We are going to definitely get into the image of black men in America, but are the three of you still reeling on the comments of Jimmy the Greek last Friday?
Well, I'm not reading. I thought the comments were pretty accurate. I think that blacks are a superior gene line. Based upon reproductive survival success, you have to reproduce in order to survive. And blacks have been put under 400 years of slavery, given the worst food, the worst medical care, the worst housing. So that would select out the weaker gene lines. And that's why we would be out of proportionally represented in just about every area we're given an opportunity.
Are you glad? You sound like you're glad he made these comments here.
Now, if whites would like to be superior, they would allow blacks to enslave them for 400 years, and their weaker gene lines would die out. So I think that Jimmy the Greek is unfairly treated by the station that fired him. And I think the other group that probably would have a superior gene line based upon reproductive survival success are Jewish people who've been driven and murdered for years. And I would like to emphasize it has nothing to do in particular with race. It has to do with selecting out a weak gene line or weak family names. Weak not in an absolute sense, but just that the people cannot stand the oppression.
There are well-accepted accounts from the Bible that Christians and others never question. Events and locations that are part of the story told of Christ and his history. One such is the account in John 1 of the birth of Christ in the Lower Galilee town of Nazareth. This town is not mentioned at all in the Old Testament, nor in any of the extensive rabbinical literature. And the only established site there is the ancient town water well, now referred to, no surprise, as Mary's Well. The modern town is covered with churches, also no surprise, and though archaeology offers no support at all for them, the Nazarenes can point out sites such as Joseph's carpentry shop and the spot where Mary received the Annunciation, the message from the angel Gabriel that she was pregnant with Jesus, as well as the exact location of Mensa Christi, the table where Jesus dined with his apostles after his resurrection, and the site of the synagogue where Jesus preached as a lad. But Nazareth may be overrated as an historical site that proves the inerrancy of the Bible. Author René Somme has written The Myth of Nazareth, the Invented Town of Jesus, a book that effectively demonstrates the controversial archaeology of the town where the Bible has Jesus Christ being born. Of course, the religious faction has reacted furiously to the book, specifically in the Bulletin of the Anglo-Israeli Archaeological Society, BAIAS, which devotes some 47 pages to 5 angry rebuttals. There is, we are told, an ambitious commercial enterprise presently under construction in Nazareth to rescue the facts about Jesus' hometown. It's a resort known as Nazareth Village. It is designed to eventually contain streets and several dozen stone houses inhabited by actors and storytellers in authentic garb, who will illuminate the life and teachings of Jesus. A notion perhaps inspired by the phenomenal success of Disneyland, where Tinkerbell and Mickey Mouse are seen flitting and strolling about, also in authentic garb. As of 10 years ago, an international consortium of Christian groups called the Miracle of Nazareth International Foundation had raised some $60 million for the project, with contributors in the U.S. such as former President Jimmy Carter, Pat Boone, and Reverend Reggie White, formerly a Green Bay Packer football star. Scholars associated with the Nazareth Village Project, Stephen Phan, Yehuda Rapuano, and Ross Voss, none of them archaeologists, now say that evidence has been discovered there for a town that existed at the time of Jesus, a settlement before the First Jewish War that took place in 70 CE. This evidence was simply lying on the open surface of the site, they say. This claim, author Psalm shows, is bogus, and it results from misdating, mislabeling, misinterpreting, and from pure invention. These artifacts and facts were somehow missed by the previous crowds of professional archaeologists who have been digging on that site for the last century. The Nazareth Village Resort lies on a 15-acre plot of land called the Nazareth Village Farm, the NVF. The scholars under discussion surveyed the farm, dug on it, and published a lengthy report in the 2007 issue of the BAIAS Journal. There is little difficulty to show that their evidence for a town there, 11 small pieces of pottery shards, actually dates as late as the 2nd century CE, and Psalm's research shows that the rest of the material from the Nazareth site dates well after the time of Jesus Christ. There simply is no demonstrable evidence from the Nazareth site that dates to the time of Jesus Christ and to Hellenistic times. In fact, one awkward fact after the other stands in the way of such a claim. For example, the Church of the Annunciation at Nazareth, the largest Christian structure in the Middle East, is a primary destination of Christian pilgrims to the Holy Land. Of course. It is there that the faithful believe Mary received the Annunciation from the Archangel Gabriel at her home, but the existence of a number of tombs directly under the structure, firmly established by archaeologists, is just impossible, since, for the faithful, tombs have no place under such a structure. According to Jewish religious law, Jews cannot live in the vicinity of tombs, which are a prime source of ritual impurity. So the ancient commentary on Jewish law mandates that tombs must be located outside of the village proper. Thus, tombs under the house of Mary are denied by the tradition. These post-Iron Age tombs are also post-Jesus, Middle Roman and later, and the wealth of pottery found in them is also later. Consider, continuing pilgrimage to Nazareth, which fortifies the convictions of the true believer while supporting the community financially, depends on the sanctity and the reputation of the site. As author Psalm points out, perhaps the entire Jesus story depends on it too. He also tells us not to be too surprised if remarkable finds at Nazareth conveniently appear in the next few years, finds that substantiate a settlement there at the time of Christ. To fit the demands of the Christian tradition, the upcoming material will have to be early and non-funereal. And just recently, as if Psalm himself had prophetic powers, the NVF now reports that a cache of Hellenistic and early Roman coins has recently been found at Mary's Well, at the northern end of the Nazareth Basin. But strangely, nothing even remotely similar had ever been found there before in the entire century of professional digging about. A cache of Hellenistic and early Roman coins, a bonanza for any archaeologist, is exactly the sort of evidence which the believers need in order to decide the matter in their favor. But the earliest coin found there dates to about 350 CE. In fact, a 2006 report from the Israeli Antiquities Authority, signed by the archaeologists who dug at the Mary's Well site, mentions no early coins at all, when coins found in wells are very frequent discoveries. The only datable coins she found there were from the 14th and 15th centuries after Jesus. The facts are that no demonstrable evidence dating either to the time of Jesus or to earlier Hellenistic times has been found at Nazareth. It is a late Roman Byzantine village, not a mythical settlement at the turn of the era. As author Psalm says, that question has already been answered, and answered convincingly.
I don't know what most white people in this country feel, but I can only include what they feel from the state of their institutions. I don't know if white Christians hate Negroes or not, but I know that we have a Christian church which is white and a Christian church which is black. I know, as Malcolm X once put it, that the most segregated hour in American life is high noon on Sunday. That says a great deal for me about a Christian nation. It means that I can't afford to trust most white Christians and certainly cannot trust the Christian church. I don't know whether the labor unions and their bosses really hate me. That doesn't matter, but I know I'm not in their unions. I don't know if the real estate lobby is anything against black people, but I know the real estate lobbies keep me in the ghetto. I don't know if the Board of Education hates black people, but I know the textbooks they give my children to read and the schools that we have to go to. Now, this is the evidence. You want me to make an act of faith, risking myself, my wife, my woman, my sister, my children, on some idealism which you assure me exists in America, which I have never seen.
Thank you for tuning in this week to KLPC Presents Study the Greats. I'm your host, Kick Nice, and this was our Honorable Mentions episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you back next week. Good night.